It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of day that should have been ordinary. I was in the kitchen slicing apples for the pie I always made on family days. Cinnamon, nutmeg, the usual. Except this time, something was off. I could feel it in the way my daughter-in-law, Clara, hovered near the hallway, pretending to clean, pretending to busy herself. My son, Jordan, hadn't looked me in the eye all morning, and when I asked him if he wanted his usual tea, he just muttered, "I'm good." That's how it started. Quiet, cold, but it didn't stay that way. Not for long. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. That afternoon, Clara finally said it. No hesitation, no shame, just, "Helen, it's time we talk about rent." I looked up, confused. "Rent?" She nodded. "You're living here now, and it's only fair." I dropped the knife onto the cutting board. "Clara, this is my house." Her expression didn't change. "That's the thing. Jordan and I took over the mortgage last year. We're managing the bills. You've been living here since your surgery and, well, with inflation and everything." She trailed off like that made it better. My hands started shaking. I gripped the counter. "My house. My late husband and I built this place from nothing. I'd planted every tree in the garden, painted every wall, raised Jordan here. And now this woman, this outsider, was telling me I needed to pay rent. But it got worse. Her mother, Gladys, strolled in from the living room like she owned the place, wrapped in one of my old shawls, sipping from one of my antique teacups. "Is everything all right?" she asked, though the smirk on her face told me she already knew. Clara glanced at her, then looked back at me. "You see, Mum's going to stay in the guest room indefinitely, so we thought it best to make things official." "Official," I whispered. "You're letting your mother live here for free." "But I have to pay rent." Gladys chuckled. "It's nothing personal, Helen, it's just boundaries." I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just nodded and walked out of the room. For days I said nothing. I slept in the same room my husband died in. I walked on eggshells, watching Clara and Gladys redecorate everything. My things were slowly disappearing. My floral rug in the hall replaced with some modern beige thing, my porcelain figurines boxed up, my piano covered in throw pillows like it was just furniture. I cooked meals, and they went untouched. I cleaned, and they dirtied it within minutes. Jordan, my own son, said little. He kissed me on the forehead in the mornings like I was some old tenant, not his mother. I thought I was going mad. Until the moment I found the envelope. It was in the trash, half buried under a banana peel. A DNA test. I pulled it out with shaking hands, wiped it clean. My name wasn't on it, but Clara's was, and someone else's. A name I didn't recognize. My heart pounded. Why would she take a DNA test? I opened the result page. My breath caught. The result, 1% probability of biological relationship. And then it hit me. The name. It wasn't her mother's. It was Jordan's. I sat there on the bathroom floor for a long time, piecing it together. Clara had submitted a DNA test comparing herself to Jordan. Why? What did she suspect? Or what was she hiding? That night I watched her closely. She laughed too loudly, touched Jordan's shoulder just a bit too often when she spoke. She kept glancing at me like she knew I'd found something, and I kept my mouth shut. For now. The next morning, Clara taped an envelope to my door. Invoice, $1,400 due by next Friday. I opened it slowly. Rent. They really meant it. They were charging me rent in my own home. And at the bottom, late fees apply. That's when something in me snapped. I called the bank, quietly, privately. I had never fully transferred the deed. Jordan and Clara didn't know that. My late husband had insisted on a clause, one that would allow me to hold ownership unless I chose to release it. They thought taking over the mortgage made them owners. It didn't. They'd been paying a bill, not buying a house. I contacted my lawyer, and then I made a call I never thought I'd make. To a man named Robert, my husband's brother, the one we hadn't spoken to in years. Because he knew things Clara never wanted anyone to know. Things about her past, about her name, about her real mother. The next few days I played nice. I paid a portion of the rent, cooked extra food, smiled when they made changes to the house. I acted like the confused old lady they thought I was. But behind the scenes I was assembling everything: documents, old letters, photos. I even scheduled a second DNA test, not for Clara, for me and Jordan, because a seed of doubt had been planted. A terrible, poisonous thought I couldn't ignore. What if he wasn't mine? One evening, Clara entered my room without knocking. "Hope you're settling in," she said, fake sweet. "I know this adjustment has been tough for you." I looked at her and asked one question. "Do you love my son?" Her face twitched. "Of course I do." "Even though you lied to him about your past?" Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" I smiled. "You heard me." She turned pale. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I said softly, reaching into the drawer beside my bed. I pulled out the original DNA test. Her hands trembled. "Where did you get that?" I didn't answer, just watched her lips tighten. That night I slipped out of the house, took only a small suitcase, left a note for Jordan. "Don't call me until you've read this." I left the DNA results. I left the property deed. And I left a flash drive full of documents Robert had given me: adoption papers, old photos, a newspaper article about Clara's biological parents, and a missing girl case. She had changed her name when she was 16. Jordan didn't know. He never knew. I left everything. I checked into a small cottage by the lake, quiet, safe. I spent 2 days there in silence, then went to the clinic. I gave my sample. Waited 3 days, and when the results came back, I stared at them for an hour. My hand clutched the armrest so hard it ached. My knees almost buckled. It was there. The truth. The kind of truth that breaks your ribs from the inside out. Jordan was not my biological son. I couldn't breathe. My mind spun back to the hospital 28 years ago. The power outage, the confusion in the nursery, the nurse who looked nervous, the way my baby cried when they brought him in. Had they given me the wrong child? Had I raised someone else's son for nearly 3 decades? And who had my real child become? I didn't cry. I couldn't. Not yet. I sat still. Completely still. Until my phone buzzed. It was Jordan. Just one message. "We need to talk. I saw everything. Clara is gone." But that wasn't the twist that shook me most. Because attached to that message was a picture of Clara, standing outside a courthouse with a lawyer and a new man beside her, holding a toddler. Captioned, "Welcome to your new life, Ava." And the man? The same name from the original DNA test, but I wasn't the only one who'd done a test recently, because in Jordan's next message, he wrote one final sentence that made my chest go cold. "Mom, you need to sit down. I took a DNA test too, and the results are worse than you think." I read that text 100 times. "Mom, you need to sit down. I took a DNA test too, and the results are worse than you think." My hands shook, but not from fear. From the kind of silence that lives in your bones when everything you thought was real suddenly isn't. I sat in the dim cottage kitchen, sunlight barely slipping through the curtains, the scent of old pine and lake water clinging to the air. I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed a moment. Or maybe I needed 1,000. Jordan's text shattered something inside me, something I didn't even know I had left to break. I had just learned the son I raised wasn't biologically mine. And now, what more could possibly be worse? 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Jordan. I let it ring twice before I answered. "Mum," he said immediately, his voice cracked like he hadn't slept. Where are you? Please. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I stayed quiet, just breathed. He kept going. I found the envelope, the flash drive, the will, everything. Clara. She left. She just disappeared. No note, no explanation. Took some bags and that's it. But before she did, she left something in my email. A file. I opened it. His voice caught. I shouldn't have. Tell me, I said. He took a breath. She knew, she always knew, that I wasn't your son. The line went silent. She found something years ago, a letter, from a nurse. It was an unsigned apology, about a mix-up in the hospital. She did a DNA test behind my back, not just with you, with someone else, and when she got the results, she planned everything. Mum, she targeted me. I closed my eyes. My heart was thudding so loud I could barely think. What do you mean she targeted you? He whispered. She married me to get to the inheritance. Your estate. Dad's company shares. She knew you'd leave it to me eventually, but she needed you out of the way. That's why she pushed for you to move in after your surgery, so you'd feel like a guest, not the owner. So I'd start seeing you as someone dependent. I pressed my hand to my mouth. Clara had always been ambitious, but this was something else. He continued. She coached her mum to act sweet, supportive, made it seem like they were doing me a favour by helping with bills, but it was all manipulation. And the worst part? His voice broke. I'm not your son, but you're the only mother I've ever known. And Clara, she found my real mother. I stopped breathing. She tracked her down, Jordan whispered. She's alive. She lives 2 states over. Clara met her once behind my back. She told her I didn't want contact, that I was better off not knowing. I stood up from the kitchen chair, dizzy. How long has she known? At least 5 years, he said. And she never told me. I stared at the wall. My throat was tight. And what about your real mother? Does she know about you now? Yes, he said. I called her this morning. She cried. She said she's been looking for me since the day I was born. I sat down again, slower this time. I was happy for him. I was, but part of me felt like I was watching my entire life float away. Jordan, I whispered, do you want to go meet her? He didn't answer right away. Then softly, not without you. My heart cracked. You don't have to protect me, I said. You have every right to... You're my mum, he interrupted. DNA doesn't change that. I don't care what some test says. You raised me. You taught me to ride a bike. You stayed up with me when I had fevers. You came to every single school play. I don't remember anything before you. I don't want anything before you. I covered my mouth, tears slipping past my fingers. But then he said something I wasn't ready for. There's more. Of course there was. Clara left another file, he said. It's about the house and the deed. She was trying to fake paperwork to have it transferred. She forged your signature, Mum. She was going to sell the house. My blood ran cold. To who? A private buyer. Someone from her past. I'm digging into it now, but she'd already started transferring furniture, antiques, your jewellery, and the safe deposit box. My voice dropped. She touched the safe? Yes, he said. She opened it. My heart dropped. She can't. It requires both our signatures. Not anymore, Jordan said. She forged yours. She even wore a grey wig to pretend to be you at the bank. You're joking. I wish I was, he whispered. But Mom, there's something missing from the box. I felt the room spin. What? He didn't answer. Jordan, what's missing? Silence. Then, the adoption file. I froze. He knew. He had found the sealed envelope I had never opened, the file my husband left in the box, labelled in case the truth ever comes out. I had never touched it, never had the strength. Jordan had always been mine in every way that mattered, but now that file was gone. We need to find Clara, I said. She won't come back, he said. She's already in another country. How do you know? Because I tracked her passport activity, I had a friend in immigration run it. And, I asked, she flew to Argentina with the man from the DNA test. And the child. With them. Whose child is it? I asked. He didn't speak. Jordan. Mine, he said. Biologically. But I didn't know she was pregnant when she left. She never told me. The rage that built inside me wasn't just anger. It was maternal, protective, violent. She had used him, stolen from us, lied, manipulated. And now she was gone with the only thing that might have saved him from this whole mess, his child. I stood up, went to the drawer, and opened a folder I hadn't looked at in over 20 years. Inside, my husband's lawyer contact, property titles, the name of the investigator we once used during the early years of his company when fraud had almost ruined him. I picked up the phone. That night, I didn't sleep. And in the morning, I got a text. It wasn't from Jordan, it was from Gladys. It read, I didn't know Clara would take it this far. Please, we need to talk. Meet me at the old greenhouse behind Willow Park at 6 p.m. Come alone. I stared at it for a long time, and then my doorbell rang. When I opened it, there stood a boy, maybe 12, shaking. He handed me a small package, a letter attached, scrawled in a handwriting I didn't recognize, but the name on the envelope. To the woman who raised the boy I couldn't keep. The envelope in my hand felt heavier than it should have, not just paperweight, soul weight, the kind of heaviness that carries 28 years of what-if secrets and the silent agony of a mother who never got to hold her child again. I looked down at the boy. His eyes were wide, pupils darting to the driveway like someone had warned him not to linger. Who gave this to you? I asked softly. A lady in a blue coat. She said she knew your son. My breath caught. Did she say anything else? He shook his head. She just said, I'd understand once I opened it. And just like that, he turned and ran, barefoot. No name, no car waiting, just the sound of his footsteps fading into gravel and fog. I sat on the edge of the bed and peeled back the envelope flap, like it was laced with poison. Inside was a handwritten letter and a photograph. The photo was faded, torn at the edge. A woman in her late 20s holding a newborn. The hospital room was bright, and despite the smile on her lips, her eyes were swollen, like she'd been crying for hours. I turned the photo over. A date, a name. March 3rd, 1997. For Helen. I hope one day this reaches you. My hand trembled as I opened the letter. The writing was elegant, slanted, feminine, but firm. Dear Helen, if you're reading this, then fate has intervened in the way I always prayed it would. I don't know your face, but I've imagined it for 28 years. I don't know your voice, but in my dreams you sing to the child I lost. You see, I was the one meant to take Jordan home that day. But the power outage, the chaos at St. Mary's, and a nurse who never came forward. It all spiraled. My baby vanished. I screamed. I begged. And they handed me a child whose bracelet didn't match the name on my labour form. They told me it was a clerical error. But a mother knows. A mother always knows. I dropped the letter for a moment. My heart pounded so violently it made my vision blur. I picked it back up. I raised that boy as my own. I tried. I truly did. But he never smiled at me the way he should have. Never reached for me. Never called me Mom with joy. I always wondered, who was raising my child? Who had the son I birthed in her arms? Then 5 years ago, a woman named Clara contacted me, said she had questions, that she believed a switch had occurred. She brought documents, blood type reports, and a photo of Jordan. I broke down. He looked like me. He had my father's chin, my mother's dimple. I knew. I wanted to run to him. But Clara told me you were sick, recovering. She said it would destroy you to know the truth. So I waited, and waited. But the waiting became unbearable. When she emailed me last week and said you found the test results, I knew the silence had to end. Please, Helen, I don't want to take him from you. I just want to know him, even if it's just from a distance. Tears blurred the final lines. I'm not here to undo what life made sacred. You are his mother. You always were. But maybe, just maybe, there's still room in his life for the woman who lost him that day. With deepest sorrow and hope, Camille. I sat frozen for nearly half an hour. Everything hurt. My fingers, my chest, my memories. My understanding of motherhood was being rewritten in real time, and somehow I had to make peace with it. Camille wasn't the enemy. Clara was. Clara, with her poisoned charm and strategic moves, had manipulated both timelines. She'd stolen from my past and Jordan's future, and I still didn't know where she was hiding or what she planned next. But at 5:45 p.m, I remembered the text from Gladys. Meet me at the greenhouse. Come alone. I grabbed the letter, slid it into my coat and walked out the door. Willow Park was nearly empty. Just wind-rustled branches and a long gravel path cutting through overgrown wildflowers. The greenhouse stood at the far end, abandoned for years, its glass walls cracked, vines curling around the doors like nature was reclaiming what humans forgot. I stepped inside. The air was humid. Dust danced in beams of sunlight that pierced through the broken ceiling. And there, sitting on an overturned flower pot like a throne of guilt, was Gladys. She looked thinner, paler. Her pearl earrings swung slightly as she tilted her head. You came, she said, like she wasn't surprised. You have 5 minutes, I said. Talk. She sighed. I didn't agree with what Clara did, not all of it. But I did stay silent. I let her lie to Jordan. I let her move your things, because she told me a story that I believed. What story? I asked coldly. That you were controlling, that you didn't want to give Jordan his freedom, that the house was never really his. She said she just wanted to build a home with him and raise a family, without your constant judgment. I laughed bitterly. So charging me rent in my own home was a love strategy. She flinched. She crossed lines. I admit it. But she was always like that. She wasn't born cruel. She became it. After her father left. After the abuse. After she had to lie about who she was just to survive. None of that excuses what she did. Gladys looked at me then. Really looked. You don't know what she's capable of, Helen. She's not done. What do you mean? She didn't go to Argentina. That was a trail she planted. She wanted you to believe she was gone, but she's still here. Somewhere close. My blood chilled. Why? Gladys lowered her voice. Because she wants Jordan's inheritance, and your house, and she knows about the offshore accounts. I blinked. What offshore accounts? Gladys stood. Ask your lawyer, ask Robert. Your husband set them up decades ago for Jordan's future. But Clara found the key, literally, a physical key. She's trying to transfer everything to a new identity. And you just let her? I snapped. No, she whispered. That's why I called you here. I want to help stop her. But it might already be too late. Just then, a sound behind us. Glass crunching. We both turned. Someone was watching. A shadow darted across the greenhouse wall. I rushed outside but saw nothing. Only an envelope taped to the greenhouse door. It said, "Don't trust her. She knows everything." See. I turned around to ask Gladys what it meant, but she was gone, vanished, like she'd never been there at all. The greenhouse stood silent. The envelope trembled in my hand. Don't trust her. She knows everything. See. It wasn't just a note. It was a warning, a threat buried in ink. And the C could only be Clara. I looked around once more, spinning in the middle of the dirt path outside the cracked glass house, searching for any sign of Gladys. But she was gone. Not a single car, not a single footprint, but mine. Did Clara come here herself? Did she see me? Was this a trap? I didn't wait to find out. I hurried back to my car, locked the doors, and drove straight to the one person I didn't want to see, but now had no choice to trust. Robert. My husband's brother wasn't a warm man. He never had been. After my husband passed, we only spoke a handful of times, mostly legal matters. But now I needed him, not for comfort, for truth. His apartment was 2 floors above a silent law office downtown, the kind of place that reeked of dust and secrets. I knocked. He opened the door halfway, eyed me like he expected someone else. Helen. Robert. You look like hell. I've had better weeks. He stepped aside. Come in. I walked into the dim room, lit by a single green-shaded banker's lamp and a hallway bulb that flickered with every gust of wind. He poured whiskey into 2 glasses. I declined. He drank both. You said there were offshore accounts, I started. He didn't flinch. There are. Why didn't you tell me? Because they weren't meant for you. I stiffened. Excuse me? They were meant for Jordan. Jordan, who I now know isn't biologically mine. He looked at me then. Does that change how you feel about him? No, I said firmly. Then don't make it change how you fight for him. I sat down, bone-tired. What's in those accounts? A little over 9 million. Diversified. Safe. He can access them on his 35th birthday, if he's alive, if the key still exists. My blood ran cold. You think Clara would hurt him? Robert leaned forward. I don't think she'd hesitate. I stared at him, disbelieving. She's already drained one of the smaller satellite accounts, the one in Monaco, used a forged identity and a burner passport. The wire trail is buried, but I saw it. She's gearing up for a full transfer. If she gets the main key, it's gone. And you're just telling me now? Because until now I didn't think you were ready. Ready for what? To learn what your husband did. I stiffened. What are you talking about? Robert took a breath. He knew about the baby switch, not at first, but later. A nurse contacted him. A month after Jordan turned 4. She said she couldn't live with the guilt. I stopped breathing. He told her to stay quiet, Robert continued. Said it would destroy you if you found out. He checked the birth records. Ran a private paternity test. Got confirmation that Jordan wasn't his. But by then, you loved that boy. You were his mother. So he kept the secret, paid the nurse to leave the country, and set up the accounts to protect Jordan's future. I gripped the edge of the chair so hard my knuckles ached. So he lied to me. He protected you, Robert said flatly. The kind of protection that feels like betrayal, I whispered. He died with that truth locked away. Robert slid a small black USB stick across the table. Everything's on here. Files, letters, the nurse's statement, and a second key. I blinked. Second key? The safe deposit box wasn't the only place your husband stored documents. There's another, in Zurich. I already booked your flight. You assumed I'd go? You have no choice, he said. Clara's already halfway there. She's looking for the Zurich box. I clenched my jaw. Then I'll get there first. Not alone, he said. I'm sending someone with you, a security consultant, private detail. You think I need a bodyguard? No, he said grimly. I think you need a witness. I took the flight at dawn. Jordan begged to come, but I told him no. I needed him safe. I needed him to stay and meet Camille, his biological mother. I needed him to know he could have 2 mothers without losing either. The plane touched down in Zurich to grey skies and bitter wind. The man waiting for me at the terminal was tall, silent, and wore mirrored glasses that never left his face. Max, he said. Robert sent me. We didn't speak again until we reached the bank. It was an old building carved into stone with doors thicker than most vaults. Inside, I was led to a private room. They verified my ID. I signed forms. Then they brought out a steel box, small, dusted, marked only with the number 43. I unlocked it with the second key Robert gave me. Inside was a leather binder, a stack of cash, and a third DNA report. I opened it slowly. The names leapt at me. My name, Camille's, Jordan's, and one more. A girl. The probability, 99.9987% sibling match to Jordan. My eyes widened. A sister. Jordan had a sister. There was a note clipped to the bottom. My husband's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. I made a choice. One I couldn't undo. There were 2 children involved in the switch, 2 families broken, but I kept one truth locked away for when the time was right. If Clara ever finds this before you, everything is at risk. She has ties to the man who adopted the sister. She's after her now. Her name is Isla. Born 6 minutes after Jordan. Raised in a foster home in Budapest. I tried to locate her. I couldn't. But if you can... The door to the bank room opened. Too fast. It wasn't Max, it was a woman. She wore a scarf, oversized sunglasses, but I knew the smirk. Clara. She smiled. Found you. Clara stepped into the private vault room like she owned it. Her scarf slipped down her shoulder, revealing that cold, practiced smirk I'd seen 100 times before, usually right before something precious of mine went missing. Max wasn't behind her. He wasn't anywhere. My heart dropped. Had she gotten to him too? I stood slowly, sliding the binder closed and tucking it beneath my coat. She didn't flinch. You move fast for a retired woman, she said, her voice soft but venom-laced. Zurich, safe deposit boxes, offshore inheritance files. I'll admit, Helen. You surprised me. Where's Max? I asked. Don't worry, she said, tossing her gloves onto the table. He just needed a nap. I offered him one. I clenched my fists. You drugged him? A girl has to be resourceful, she said. Besides, you taught me that, didn't you? All that quiet patience, watching, waiting, gathering evidence. It's inspiring, really. I know everything now, Clara. Do you? She asked, tilting her head. Because from where I'm standing, you still look shocked. Let me guess. You just found out about Isla. I stiffened. You knew? Oh, I've known about Isla for years, she said. I even tracked her down once. Sweet girl, quiet, too trusting. What did you do? I asked. She smiled. Nothing. Yet. I stepped forward. You won't touch her, or Jordan, or that child you left the country with. Argentina was a red herring, she shrugged. Fake stamps, hacked systems. I left that trail for amateurs to follow. You used him, I hissed. You married him knowing he wasn't mine, knowing his identity wasn't even his. And, she said with a shrug, what did he lose? A name? A history? He gained everything from me, until you started sniffing around. He lost a mother, I snapped, and you lost your mind. She laughed. Actually laughed. Still full of fire, aren't you? I remember when I first moved in, you used to be so proud, always talking about legacy, family, honor. Then your body broke down, and suddenly you were just another woman waiting to be told where she could sleep. You should have stayed small, Helen, obedient, quiet, but you couldn't help it, couldn't resist digging. I pulled the binder out from beneath my coat and slammed it on the table. I didn't dig. I uncovered. This is the end of your game. Her eyes flicked to the binder. I saw the twitch in her jaw, the panic she tried to mask. What's in there? She asked, voice thinning. Everything, I said. DNA, letters, bank authorizations. Proof that your entire marriage was based on fraud. You impersonated me, forged federal documents. You moved money internationally under fake identities. I could hand this to Interpol and have you arrested before breakfast. She stepped forward. But you won't. Why not? Because Jordan still loves me. Not anymore, I said. He read the files. He saw your email to Camille. He found the burner account. He knows you used him. Her lips trembled. He wouldn't believe you over me. He doesn't have to, I said. He believes the facts. And guess what? That child you thought you could keep, your daughter, he's already contacted child services. They're tracing custody now. DNA proves it's his, not yours to run off with. Not anymore. Her hands clenched into fists. You think you've won? No, I said softly. I think I've stopped losing. Suddenly she lunged. Faster than I expected. She shoved the binder to the floor and dove for it. I moved quicker, slapped the emergency button under the table, one the banker had shown me just before entering. Sirens blared. The vault doors began to seal. She froze. 2 security guards stormed in. Max stumbled in after them, one hand to his neck, dazed but upright. Get her, I said, pointing to Clara. She's not supposed to be here. She assaulted my security escort and tried to steal evidence. Clara looked around wildly. You can't prove anything. Actually, Max croaked, pulling a pen from his jacket. I can. He clicked it. A red light blinked at the top. Audio recorder. Heard everything. Clara screamed. They cuffed her, dragged her out of the vault, heels scraping against marble, cursing my name, Jordan's name, even her own mother's. I watched her vanish behind the steel doors. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted, hollow, but free. Max drove me back to the airport. On the way, I called Jordan. He didn't answer. I tried again. No luck. My stomach turned. Something was wrong. When I landed back home, it was raining. I raced through customs, heart pounding. A driver was waiting with a sign, Helen M. I nodded. He didn't speak, just drove. When I walked through the front door of the house I built, I froze. Jordan was sitting in the living room. Next to him was Camille, and a girl, maybe 27, eyes just like mine. He stood when I entered. Mom, he said. Camille stood too. Helen. I dropped my bag. I looked at the girl. She stepped forward. Her voice wavered. Hi, I'm Isla. I walked toward her. She opened her arms, and for the first time in my life, I hugged my daughter. Jordan placed his hand on my back. She's been looking for you, he said. I didn't know I was missing, I whispered. We sat together for hours. Camille told me about the years in hiding, about her own regrets, about the birthday cards she never sent. Isla showed me drawings she'd made when she was little, of a woman with silver hair and a red jacket. I wept. Jordan wept. Camille wept. For the first time, we were 3 mothers in one room, and not a single ounce of hate existed between us. 3 weeks later, Clara was charged in federal court for fraud, forgery, theft, and attempted kidnapping. She pled not guilty. The trial is still pending, but I don't care. I've already won, because I no longer live in a house where I pay rent to be disrespected. I now live in a home rebuilt with truth. Jordan asked me if I wanted to move in with him and Isla while they start over. I told him I had a better idea. I signed the house back into his name, set up a trust for Isla, and walked away from the pain like a woman on fire, no longer afraid to burn. Now I live by the lake. I bake pies again. I write letters to a granddaughter I finally get to meet next month. And every morning I wake up knowing I didn't lose a son. I gained the truth. And a daughter I never knew I had.